Hi. Thank you so much for joining CEOwise.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So you're the founder and CEO of Retroviral, and where you create online marketing strategies and engaging content for brands. And I think you got your big break when you worked on the Nando's campaign. Tell me a bit about that.
So we were very fortunate. Back in 2010, we launched Retroviral after I'd been working in the UK for a couple of years. And prior to that, I'd been working in traditional PR in South Africa. And the thing that I learned while working in London was how important the growth of the internet was and the adoption by the consumer. So social media was starting to explode. I've been on Twitter since 2008. I've been using Facebook and incorporating social in a lot of the day-to-day community management jobs that we were working on for clients. We launched Retroviral as a differentiator in the sense that because of my traditional comms background, I could talk the talk from a comms perspective. And then because I'd trained myself personally and was obsessed with analytics and the background of social and getting content out there into the social space, using social media as the conduit for amplification of content, we were able to go to a brand like Nando's. It's a mixture of network and a mixture of who you know. And we pitched the idea to say, why are you seeding your posters, which have now become so synonymous with a brand? Why are you paying money to put them into a newspaper or put them in as advertorial? Like, let's try and seed this content online, because ultimately people and word of mouth is going to be the most important weapon for the dissemination of this content.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate enough to be given a poster. It was when Julius was still part of the youth league, and he was quite unhappy because people were starting to open a whole bunch of fake or parody Julius Malema accounts. And he wanted to shut down Twitter. Like, that was a directive that he put out there in the press.
Wow.
And obviously Nando's, with the tongue-in-cheek process that they usually follow when something topical in the political front happens, they constructed, Black River was the agency at the time, and the poster said, WTF, Juju, lol. And then obviously there was the famous body copy that was the smaller text that was in that poster.
Sure.
And that was a Friday afternoon, and I was working with Melissa Attree at the time, and she and I got that poster seeded amongst the Twitterati and the other social media influencers online. Yeah. And that was an important case study for us, because we showed how impactful social media in the South African landscape was. And as they say, the rest is history. We were working on signing an NDA and working on a campaign where they had a Cell C spoof a few weeks later.
Yes.
And that got 100,000 views on YouTube within 6 days. We were high-fiving each other and had never seen anything like that in SA. And a year later, we were working on the infamous Mugabe campaign, The Last Dictator Standing, where we took 3 Mugabe lookalikes to deliver to 50 online influencers, to deliver them the TV commercial that Black River had once again so famously created, and then obviously got the dissemination of that to a space where that video was viewed more than 2 million times in less than a month. And I think that for us was a real turning point in our business. I mean, we went on to win some major awards internationally.
Wow.
We managed to enhance our exposure for the Retroviral brand, and there's almost been one campaign a year that we've manufactured the science of virality from, in order to get eyeballs onto a piece of content, not just in South Africa, but on a global scale, where we've either created the content and disseminated ourselves, or we've worked with some smart people at various agencies to amplify their brilliant concepts and campaigns.
Okay, and you've also been very successful on the Rocco Mamas campaign, where you've implemented online marketing strategies to boost their business quite substantially, I believe. And what I found quite fascinating is the owner and founder of Rocco Mamas changed the lighting in his shops so people would take better photographs and for posting on Instagram. I just found that fascinating.
With an entrepreneur who's so passionate about his business, such as Brian, he'll spend most of his days within one of the stores, and he's constantly observing human behavior, and he spends a lot of time researching certain trends. It's also incredible seeing a brand like that deal with complaints. So our team here at Retroviral monitors Twitter, monitors Instagram for complaints, and more often than not, a complaint is resolved at store level while you're still in the store.
Now, you wrote a book called The Best Deck, which it was an awesome read, but it's not only great for aspiring entrepreneurs, but also for established entrepreneurs as well. What inspired you to write the book?
I really want to encourage more entrepreneurs to just start businesses. And I think in the South African context, it's incredibly important, because the only way we can solve unemployment problems is by creating more businesses.
Absolutely.
And to mentor people, to help them, to say, let's work together on your journey, because I don't want you to collapse before you hit year 3. I want you to go into year 5. I want you to go into year 10. I want you to carry on to year 20. I mean, the things that I've learned from this business, I'd like to pay it forward and show other entrepreneurs what kinds of stuff they can experience along their journeys.
Well, you can definitely see that you had some kind of stand-up background because there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek messages, and then it's really an awesome read.
Thank you.
And you mentioned early on about NDAs, and you say people are or people with an idea are so too quick to whip out the NDA and get someone to sign it. Why do you think it's not important?
I personally think NDAs are a waste of time, in the sense that an idea is only as good as its execution, and an idea is only as good as the MVP or the minimum viable product that you can go to market with. So often the idea that an entrepreneur has, or the passion that they have for something, that will determine success or failure, not what the actual idea is, because we all have ideas.
Being a service-oriented business, how important do you think it is to shift your clients over onto a retainer basis?
So retainers are an interesting one, because in the early days, for me, I was very much geared to delivering on projects and executing, boom, big hits, get the views, get the engagement, get the results. And it was difficult for us to shift clients from that mentality into a longer term thinking. As a service business, you're selling time, and time is finite.
Exactly.
So what we've expanded into over the years is looking at, cool, how do we sell time and consultancy, and what do we sell from a product point of view? And for us, products are things like videos and reports and insights, and those things can be monetized, and they can be productized in a way that can be packaged and they can be sold.
Over 80% of businesses that fail do so, as you mentioned, from poor cash flow. Now, how do we stop the fear of financial failure from crippling us?
Cool, that's a great line that Melissa Attry used to instill in me when we used to work together.
Yeah.
And for me, cash flow is a huge deal. And the problem is, when you get into a relationship when you can't dictate, or you can't offer some suggestion of when you get paid, that's when it becomes quite a challenge. And in the early stages of your business and your entrepreneurial journey, it's very important to explain to the supplier, or to explain to the person that you're working with, or the brand directly, or the customer directly, that there's certain costs that you need to absorb, and there's certain things that you need to be paid up front for. And I think that that's a challenge in a very economically sensitive environment, is that people aren't willing to pay for services that haven't been rendered. But at the same time, entrepreneurs too often take on jobs without any form of security.
Why do you say that you need to build your personal brand before you build your business brand?
Personal brands are important because they're about people, and it's a human thing. And a human is always going to do a much better sales job than a brand, especially when a brand doesn't have any brand equity. So think about it, every brand that you love today, the reason why you love it is because there's certain credibility, there's legacy, there's a way that you've experienced it, whether it be a car or a sneaker or even a piece of software. Like there's exposure that you have to it.
Yeah.
When it comes to launching new businesses, that brand has no equity. The equity sits in you as the human being. So I could get up on stage and I could profess my thought leadership and my insights around certain things. Yeah. And Retroviral happened to be the shell in which I'm operating under. As you grow your business, you obviously want to spend more time putting more emphasis into the brand, and you want to give people within your organization the opportunity to be spokespersons and representatives of that brand. But in the early stages, the easiest thing to sell is with human beings, and for me to make an emotional connection with an audience. So you buy into me, and then you buy into Retroviral second. When multiple partners are involved, it's a decision where are both spokespeople, is one not as comfortable as another, and you'll find that sometimes the case. If you look at old Stephen Was, the one was a charismatic salesperson, the other was a hardcore dev coder type.